The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this July 3rd. It's July 3rd, 2026. It's a Friday. Tomorrow we will do a show on July 4th, don't worry. And we will cover kind of July 4th and the meaning and what meaning does it have in 2026. Today's show is a news show. We will also have a show on Sunday, although earlier than usual because of the Brazil game. We will have a show earlier on Sunday, and that show will be dedicated, it will be a Nikos and Yaron show on Kurdish Yarvin. So check it out. So Saturday show, probably at 3 p.m. East Coast time, although I have to look at when the soccer games are on. And Sunday would be 1 o'clock East Coast time, so we can catch the 4 o'clock Brazil game. Both Nikos and I want to watch that game. All right. I just got back from OCON, the Objectivist conference in New Orleans. I don't know why all of you weren't there, but you should have come. Of course, I had been in Israel before that for my mother's funeral, and then spent a few days with my family, and then flew from Israel through London to New Orleans. Got there Sunday night, spent Monday and Tuesday at the conference. Wednesday, we did an Ayn Rand seminar. Thursday, all-day flight from New Orleans to Puerto Rico. I'm exhausted just saying all that. Anyway, the conference was terrific. I think all of you had a good time. Those of you who are on here now could testify whether you had a good time. Everything was great. Lectures, good lectures. Actually, my talk, which was moved from the opening banquet, which I did not attend because I was in Israel, to the closing banquet, was actually released by the Ayn Rand Institute earlier today. So you can go to YouTube and watch it if you weren't at the conference itself. I'm told that it was really, really good and people really enjoyed it. So, go for it. Kim says, OCON was so much fun, but New Orleans was too hot. I told you it was going to be hot and humid. Hot and humid is New Orleans. That is the nature of the place, particularly in the summer. It's brutal. It actually wasn't as hot and humid as I expected. So Kim, could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. OCON, you can check out the videos will be released over time. Some of you have signed up or bought a virtual OCON, so you can watch the videos online. Now, as I said, my video from the closing banquet celebrating the 4th of July and the producers, the productive genius of Americans, that went on, I think, on the Ayn Rand Institute website today. I'll see when I can release it on my website, hopefully soon. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah, Polka was great, although I have to call him out. I mean, Ryan was really mean to me. Ryan Ward, yes, that's you. Really mean to me. He completely exploited the fact that I was exhausted, tired, jet-lagged, just wanted to get to bed, to, seduce me into going all in without any cards, just to get the poker game over so I could go to bed. So congratulations to Ryan who beat me, who's the guy who knocked me out of poker. I think Ray Gurn won. Won the competition. I think that Tal Tzfani came in third. I'm not sure who was second, but I think Tal was third. So Ryan, I am gunning for you next year. Gunning for him next year because somehow he got me out this year. I definitely want to do better next year. All right, but it was fun. Those of you who play poker could testify. It's fun. Half the people playing don't know how to play, so don't feel bad about joining us next year, even if you don't know how to play. And it's a great way to provide some financial support for the Ayn Rand Institute and Some people can even get a tax deduction, or if you're an American, because it's a charitable contribution. So it's even that. Next year's OCON is in Keystone, Colorado, so it's up in the mountains. I will warn you now, just as I warned you about the heat in New Orleans, I'll warn you about altitude in Keystone, Colorado. It is high. It is 9,000 plus feet. I recommend coming a couple of days early, or at the very least coming a couple of days early to Denver, and then going up to Keystone for the conference. Something like that for many of you, or some of you. Being at that altitude will be not easy. Not easy. Take that into consideration. But I hope to see more of you next year. And it should be a great conference. It'll be out in the wilderness. It's a beautiful country, a lot of hiking, a lot of stuff to do. It's really nice, really pretty. And you should join us. It's 9,280 feet, says the one and only 2468. All right. So very cool. OCON 2027 will also be the 70th, is that right? 70th celebration of Atlas Shrugged. So appropriately, it's in Colorado. 70th anniversary of the publication of Atlas Shrugged. So we'll go out into the mountains. I think it takes 150 years for Atlas Shrugged to dominate the culture. So we're almost halfway there. So come and celebrate with us. So it's also cool. It's not hot. 66 degrees today in Keystone. So quite cool and sunny. Usually the weather is really nice. It's you don't get rain during this season. And there are a lot of objectivists in Denver. I hope they all show up and join us. It should be good. All right, let's see. Let's go to the news, I guess. Should we move to the news? I guess so. All right. Let's see. Yeah, first time into the news is really kind of the success of the Democratic Socialists of America in Democratic primaries. Democratic Socialist candidates, I think, have won 28 primaries around the country. They're going to make the kind of the far left congressional members in Congress, congressional members in the Democratic Party. There are not that many of them. If these 28 actually win, they're going to be a dominant force within the Democratic Party. I think this has the potential really to completely reshape the Democratic Party in the form of a far left political party, because we talked about this, that Mamdani's candidates all won in New York, but then there were others, even in Colorado. We got what's this woman's name? Melat Kiros, a 29-year-old Democratic Socialist, unseated a Diane DeGette, who was a congresswoman for 20-something years, 15 terms, 30 years. So maybe it was time. But pretty amazing. She won it in Colorado, it's a 29-year-old beat a 68-year-old. So you can guess that a lot of young people came out to vote. A lot of young people were motivated. The Democratic Socialists of America, clearly, these are young people, typically young, upper middle class, right? Young, educated, highly educated people who vote for these candidates. She crushed. She crushed us. She won by 10 percentage points. The Democratic Socialists are on the rise, really all across the country, primarily in urban situations. this is going to be a trend wherever you have young people and wherever they are, you can rally them out to get them to vote. So it's pretty amazing. 25 supposedly, 25 or 28 far left House candidates have won the Democratic Party primaries this year. And there's already 18 like-minded colleagues in the House, which include AOC and others. Although it's kind of funny that there's something put out today about AOC being a Zionist. She's too right-wing for these. She's too pro-Israel for these crazies. Anyway, a little bit about the Democratic Socialists of America. It's an organization that basically was founded in 1982, so they've been around for a while, by merging two left-wing organizations. And it's interesting, kind of the origins of the two left-wing organizations. One was Michael Harrington's Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee, and the second was the New American Movement. The Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee came out of kind of the old left. It's an old socialist party, social democratic, pro-labor tradition. So these are people who are anti-communists in the 1960s, but pro-welfare state, pro-trying to gain a much bigger, foothold in American politics, trying to move the Democratic Party to the left in terms of social policies, in terms of economic policies, primarily, right? The NAM, the New American Movement, on the other hand, came out of the New Left, feminism, anti-Vietnam War activism, post-1960s radical politics. So you can associate them with more of the precursors of woke, of the New Left as we know it today. The key founder of the combined entity was Michael Harrington, who wrote a book called The Other America in 1962 about poverty, and was really pushing the Democratic Party towards kind of the war on poverty in the 1960s, the organized labor rights, and much of kind of the Johnson administration's ideas, but then kept pushing it leftwards. This is New Deal, Great Society, pro-labor, pro-welfare state, anti-Reagan, anti-communist, internationalists, trying to work through the Democratic Party. Right? NAM, on the other hand, is clearly not reformist, which the old socialist element was. NAM was revolutionary. NAM was anti-colonialism, intersectionality, and ultimately woke revolutionaries, and a heavy emphasis on identity politics and on working outside the Democratic Party. And so in the 1980s, DSA fought the Reagan-era conservatism, supported labor and civil rights causes, opposed apartheid in South Africa, backed left-wing movements in places like Central America. Didn't have much of an impact during that time, and indeed the Democratic Party during the Reagan era and the post-Reagan era, particularly in the 1990s, basically the Democratic Party moved towards the center with Bill Clinton. In the 1990s, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and Bill Clinton's kind of welfare reform and prison expansion, sentencing expansion, free trade agreements, the DSA is marginalized during this period. In 2000, you get, you in the post 9/11, they are at the core of the anti-war movement, but really what really gives them a boost is the financial crisis. So if you think about Occupy Wall Street, remember Occupy Wall Street? These are the people behind Occupy Wall Street, right? But the reality is that even then, DSA itself as an organization was tiny. They had about 5,000 members, for decades. This was not an important force, not significant. Maybe the only representative they had in the end was Bernie Sanders, who ran as an independent and considered himself a Democratic Socialist, whatever that means, right? But that really changes, surprise, surprise, that really changes in 2016 with the election of Trump and the elevation of Bernie Sanders to a more prominent position in American politics. Bernie Sanders, openly calling himself a Democratic Socialist, was very attractive to a whole generation that rejected capitalism, that lived through the financial crisis, had high student debt, high housing costs, was disappointed by Obama and Obamacare, railed against the Iran-Iraq war and just the hostility towards Wall Street. And of course, Trump's election just aggravated everything and gave them a cause. So DSA's membership went from about 5,000 before 2016 to 50,000 by 2020. 79,000 in 2021. So it really took off under Trump, kind of leveled off under Biden, went down to about 51,000, but still 10 times what it was before Trump. And right now, with Trump 2.0, membership is in excess of 100,000. And the real difference now is that now they are starting to really make entry in a big way into the Democratic Party. Now, AOC had a big part of this. In 2018, she won against a longtime incumbent. And together with Rashid Tlaib and other Squad associated figures, she made kind of Democratic Socialist agenda mainstream within Democratic politics. And, they came in and they started to advocate for further and further and further, pushed the agenda further and further left. And, there was this within the Democratic Party, this uneasy relationship. To what extent did they support the Democratic leadership? There were these conflicts between AOC and some of the Democratic leadership over the years. The tensions became explicit in 2024. Indeed, AOC, who tended to support the Democratic leadership, was put down by the DSA, particularly because she refused to criticize Israel as much. She voted for Iron Dome funding. She wasn't quite as anti-Zionist as they wanted her to be. And indeed, the DSA has shifted ideologically. It's no longer the old left, socialist, democratic socialist, we want to be like Europe political party. It's much more radical than that. It's much younger, it's more activist, much more anti-capitalist, and much, much more hostile to Israel, and much more influenced by kind of the whole anti-colonialism, America's a bad country, hate America, and the whole agenda of intersectionality, the whole agenda of radical leftism on campus. And the kids who support this are coming right off campuses, right out of their gender study classes. It's much more anti-police, defund the police. I don't think Harrington and the old Democratic Socialists would be that way. Indeed, police is a function of the state in Europe. They don't want to just replace Europe. They don't want America to become Europe. They want America to become, a model of what leftism could be. So In the 2024 program, they blame capitalists for violence in the world. Capitalism is responsible for unemployment. Capitalism is responsible for climate change. They emphasize Medicare for all, socialized medicine. I hate Medicare for all. Just call it socialized medicine. They advocate for socialized medicine. More power to unions. Taxing the rich. They are behind a lot of the push for wealth taxes. Wealth taxes is a big agenda item for them. They want, you remember the Green New Deal? That's them. Free Palestine and boycott Israel. Cut off all relationship between the U.S. and Israel. Reduce the military spending dramatically. Defund the police. All of that. That is DSA. So if you think about the old DSA, right? Social democracy, Europe as a model, labor, pro-labor, anti-communist, working through the Democratic Party. The new DSA is younger. It's post-Bernie, so more woke than Bernie. Bernie was never woke enough for them. The old DSA was anti-capitalist, but this is anti-public property, anti-private property, pro-nationalization. Think Mamdani and rent and rent in New York City. Very anti-Israel and anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic in many respects, much more confrontational with Democrats, yet working within the Democratic Party to get their people elected. And here's the thing. The new DSA is a much more principled version of the Democratic Party, because what does the Democratic Party stand for? Somewhat left, somewhat anti-Israel, somewhat anti-American, somewhat. Well, these guys are all in. And the reality is that the more principled side is going to win out. They are the more principled. They take their leftism more seriously. And this is why, they are winning. I mean, think about Mamdani and everything he stands for now being exported into Congress. The argument is that the DSA, real DSA people, currently hold about 2 seats in Congress. They could have more than 20 after the midterm elections. So, really, I think devastating. The United States has never been sympathetic to these radical leftist ideas. Remember McGovern 72, the 72 campaign, and how he got destroyed because he was way too left for Americans. Americans were willing to vote for a very, 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 very flawed candidate like Nixon because the Democrats had gone too far to the left. Now, the ones, and I think there was backlash against that, and indeed the Democratic Party became much more centrist. Think of Jimmy Carter, who did a lot of the deregulation in the 1970s. Think of Bill Clinton. Obama was pretty far left, but not as left as these guys. That more principled position is rising within the Democratic Party. Yeah. I mean, the group now has chapters in all 50 states. Right? And they are passionate. They work hard. They get out the vote, particularly in the primaries. And, again, Israel is a big deal for them. Hatred of Israel. And claiming to be pro-Palestinian. Of course, they're very anti-Palestinian, ultimately. Wealth taxes are big. Going after billionaires is big. Dealing with, quote, affordability is big, by dealing with it by means of price controls. And Democratic Party is shifting dramatically to the left. And it's real. I mean, they could win, in a sense that the Democratic Party could win. The Democratic Party could easily dominate both Senate and House after this election. You could imagine a Democrat winning in 2028. And no matter who the Democrat who wins in 2028, he could be a centrist. He will be dramatically pushed to the left. He won't govern from the center. He'll govern from the left because he'll constantly have to appease his leftist constituency. Now, in a lot of these places, the turnout is pretty low where these Democratic Socialists win, but it doesn't matter. These are the loudest, most vocal, and they're the ones that will determine who gets elected in these primary elections. Notice that the revolution is not a working class revolution. I mean, it's stunning that leftist revolutions almost never working class, right? This is a big divergent away from Marx and his theories. Working class is not involved. This is a, quote, revolution of urban professional class, well-educated. These are people who celebrate 9/11, cheer October 7th, want to defund the police, abolish prisons, end private property, and really end America. And this is, they really hold these ideas. They really stand by them. And when some Democrats go out there and say, we are capitalists, not socialists, we want safety, not lawlessness, all this kind of stuff, they're booed off the stage because they're not capitalists. They are, everybody can see through that. The reality is that one of the reasons that they have been so successful, the Democratic Socialists of America, is because there's nobody, and certainly not anybody in the Republican Party who is defending capitalism. So they look at the world out there, and what they see is a mixed economy, which has a lot of injustices. And everybody tells them this mixed economy out there is not really a mixed economy. Everybody tells them this is capitalism. And all the injustices that exist out there in the world are caused not by the status mixed, but by the capitalist element. And they resent capitalism. The financial crisis was caused by capitalism. 9/11 was caused by America. All the evils in the world are ultimately caused by the capitalist system. And these young people have grown up to believe it. And now they rally around it, and nobody's out there. Nobody's out there. Particularly nobody in politics is out there defending capitalism, defending America, defending what really happened in 9/11, what really happened in the financial crisis, and what really drives this country and why we're so successful. There's nobody who will articulate the difference between a welfare state, regulatory, mixed economy, and what capitalism really is and how good capitalism could be, or how good capitalism is if it were ever given a try. And why all the evils that they see, and many of the evils that they see are real evils, are actually a consequence of statism, of the perversion and distortion of whatever capitalism is. So, to a large extent, if you see Donald Trump, right now, supposedly there's a story out that Donald Trump's going to take a 10%, that the government is going to take a 10% stake in OpenAI. These people say, So nobody is defending private property. Nobody actually wants to see a separation of the state from business. Well, why not take 50%? Why only 10%? If the principle is gone, that the U.S. government does not own shares in private corporations, then why not go all the way? If it's so important for the state, for the American people, in quotation marks I'm saying, American people to own the means of production, why not really own the means of production? Nobody stands up, even, the people who say I'm pro-capitalist are all mixed economy types. Well, okay, let's take what you actually believe based on how you voted and how you've acted and take it to the extreme. It's all socialism. It's not capitalism. So they benefit from the reality that the people advocating for capitalism are unbelievably weak and don't really believe in capitalism. By the way, this generation of DSA are also shaped to a large extent by identity politics of the new left. So, for example, the presumptive Democratic Congresswoman Daria Lisa Avia Chevalier, I think from New York, has argued against interracial relationships. Yeah, because if you believe in identity politics, then identity is determined to some extent by the color of your skin, then you're betraying your identity by having a relationship that, and maybe even mixing your genes with somebody from a different identity. By the way, she received words of praise. She was commended by David Duke, the Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard, or was once. So this is who these people are. The racists, the real socialists, the anti-civilization, anti-American, and they're winning in the Democratic Party. I agree with this post by Richard Hanania. He says, the rise of socialism can't be separated from conservatives no longer presenting an intellectual defense of capitalism. Not that I think they ever really did, but it's gotten weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Now they don't even pretend to do it. 15 years ago, he goes on, conservatives would cite people like Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman, explain why Obama administration was creating moral hazard, etc. I mean, that's pretty weak, right? But today, he says, that's completely gone. You have post-liberals and people like Vance who borrow from leftists in critiquing capitalism and saying that it's failed. Trump does mercantilism and takes stakes in companies beyond anything Obama did. He continues, so conservatives stop defending capitalism and then get upset that socialism wins. You people are the ones who talk about protecting jobs from foreign competition, which he suggests is socialism, and I agree, as if that's consistent with the belief in markets. The left is higher IQ, so can see the contradiction there. Nativism is just less principled and intellectually consistent socialism. The left takes the exact same assumptions and subtracts the nativism, and suddenly the right gets upset that they arrive at socialism. So what Hanania is saying is the right is socialism plus nativism. The left is just socialism without the nativism. They have this, this alternative racial theory, the racial identity theory. So they come to a large extent to some of the same conclusions. On the other hand, the more the left pushes socialism, the better Republicans are likely to do. I've told you in the past, not just socialism, but the woke agenda. The more they push the woke agenda, particularly trans and intersectionality and this identity politics, the more the left pushes that, the more that becomes mainstream Democratic, the more Republicans will win. So while they might win an election cycle, this midterm and maybe the next presidential, as a backlash against Trump, ultimately the backlash will be against the socialists and for the nativists. Not for capitalism, God forbid, but for the real nativists. There's a headline in Newsweek, which I think is true. Could progressive Democrats be the best thing to happen to the GOP in 2026? Yeah, probably. Right? The right is going all out nativist, Groiper BS. And there will be a time that the American people will have to decide. And I think the American people are much more religion and flag than they are hammer and sickle, or they are woke, or they are transgender. So at the end, I still agree with Leonard Peikoff's conclusion at DIM, that is the end, the biggest threat is the right. Not that the left's not a threat. Not that the left won't do a lot of damage. Not that the left can't win an election here and there. The left can't form a sustained governing coalition like the right, I think, can. But it's a scary coalition. Like, if you're on the left, far left, and you're racist, and you're anti-capitalism, then at some point down the road, you might be attracted to J.D. Vance, maybe a more charismatic J.D. Vance, who is also a racist and anti-capitalist, but now gives you something to believe in, like national conservatism or Christian conservatism or something like that. I'll just end this with a bit of something a little bit more lighthearted, thanks to Zoran Mamdani. This is why the socialists can't win. Because Americans, at the end of the day, won't tolerate this. This is Mayor Zoran Kwame Mamdani's Twitter on July 1st, 2 days ago. New York, it's hot out there, and the power grid is working overtime to keep us cool. Set your AC to 78 degrees. Turn off lights, electronics you're not using, and unplug what you can. Our city is doing its part too. Maintaining the 78-degree rule is in our buildings, dimming, turning off our lights during peak electricity demand, asking private partners to do the same, and powering down non-essential equipment. A stable grid means the AC stays on and lives are saved. Let's ease demand and get through the heat together. In other words, let's be like Europe. Get rid of that AC. Although Europe would love AC at 78 degrees. Americans don't like this. This is Jimmy Carter wearing the sweater when there was no heating oil because of the oil embargo. This is defeatism 101. This is accept a lower standard of living, lower quality of life for the common good. Americans don't actually like that. They ultimately vote for these policies, but they don't like it. And the more explicit you make it, the less likely they are to vote for you. So this is why the left can't win, because they actually believe in anti-growth. They actually believe in the environment is more important than human life. And Americans don't quite buy that. They not yet anyway. And I don't think they will. All right, so that is Democratic Socialists of America. Socialist, more socialist than the Democrats, quite a bit more socialist than the Democrats, but really heavily influenced and driven by the whole woke ideology. They hate Israel even more than they hate capitalism. And their identity politics is really crucial to who they are and what they believe in. So prepare to deal with a lot more of that crap in the years to come. We're going to have a lot of those people in the years to come. All right, let's move on. So earlier this week, there was a 927-page financial disclosure that was made by the president, President Trump. In that report, he reported personal income. Are you ready for this? Personal income of $2.2 billion in 2025. And you might say, well, you know, he's a real estate guy. He got that property when property values went up or something like that. No. You don't make $2.2 billion in 1 year from real estate. Or he doesn't anyway. It almost all came, or most of it came, from cryptocurrency ventures, such as, you remember the Trump meme coin, created by the Trump family only days before last year's presidential inauguration. It's sort of a 300% on release night. Anybody who bought it, by the way, up there, now owns a meme coin that's worth less than $2. So hundreds of millions of dollars generated from I don't know. I mean, it's not illegal, but it's playing on people's irrationality. Overall, we'll get into some of the more details of this. Overall, Trump made $1.4 billion in crypto profits in 2025. I mean, the guy is a crypto genius. Investment accounts linked to Trump carried out multiple high-profile trades last year, including more than 300 previously undisclosed stock purchases on April 8th, 2025, one day before he announced that he would pause a number of his Liberation Day tariffs. We call that, in plain language, insider trading. 300 trades the day before he announced that. You know, this is by far, it's not even close. It's not even close. This is by far the most corrupt administration in all of American history. Nothing comes close. You think the Biden crime family, Burisma and Hunter Biden, I mean, that was penny chump change. It was chump change. Now, a lot of presidents have been corrupt. A lot of presidents have made money, usually, after the presidency. Bill Clinton reportedly earned more than $75 million on the speaking circuit in the decade after he left office. George W. Bush, his net worth increased by some $50 million after leaving office. Yeah, they all make money after the fact, speaking, buying influence. But there's nothing like this. And there's nothing like this, not just in scale, but in shamelessness. Like the Biden family tried to hide it. Bush and Clinton and Obama got rich after. But this is unbelievable. I mean, this is a massive transfer of wealth from the American people, sometimes voluntarily by playing to their naivete and stupidity, like with the meme coin, and partially just straight out theft. Like when the U.S. government invests in companies that Trump just happened to own stock in. Now, every president since the Civil War, this is, by the way, the Free Press has a really good article in this. Every president since the Civil War has avoided financial conflict until Trump, because they knew it was the right thing to do. But Trump doesn't care. Trump doesn't care. The White House and Trump just deny there's any conflict of interest. According to the White House, according to the press secretary, the president only acts in the best interest of the American people. And if that best interest involves him making $2 billion, so be it. This week, spokesman said there are no conflicts of interest. Now, this is ridiculous. Trump's financial reports, just published, right, show that his account executed nearly 4,000 trades. 4,000 trades. I mean, it's one of the most active accounts out there. other than hedge funds, I guess. 4,000 trades during just a 3-month period. Many of those trades involved companies that, kind of are trying to stay in the good graces of the administration, which is exactly conflict of interest. Trump, for example, told reporters earlier this week, he has no control over how his money is invested because it's in a blind account run by big institutions, which is ridiculous. It's completely false. It's just one of Trump's blatant lies. Much of the money he's made during his second term stems from financial deals cut by his 2 oldest sons. That's not blind. That's not big institutions. These sons these deals often take place after the president has smoothed their path from the White House. Trump himself owns 70% of the holding company that controls the family's crypto ventures. He owns 70%. It's not blind. There's nothing blind here. Here's some examples. In September, the administration made a deal with Kazakhstan to give an American company, Raz Resources, access to that country's large deposits of tungsten, which is a metal that we need in order to build weapons. Now, Kaz, received from the administration approval for $1.6 billion in federal funds to help finance the project. All that, right? I mean, I don't think the U.S. government should be funding any of this stuff, but okay. But Trump's sons swooped in, joined a group that take 20% stake in the company. Right? So Trump's sons own a company that is going to take a 20% stake in this company that just got this $1.6 billion from the government and got a deal with the Kazakhstan government. His sons have made numerous deals in the Middle East where the U.S. has vital interests, right? So you've got foreign affairs interests, defense interests, and the president's sons are cutting deals. Any conflict of interest there? Maybe. For example, World Liberty Financial, which is Trump's crypto company, and the UAE issued a new cryptocurrency. It was a stable coin, and it sought a buyer to give them credibility in the marketplace. So in that conference in Dubai, Eric Trump, Zach Witkoff, the same Witkoff that is doing all the negotiations in the Middle East. Steve Witkoff, remember him? Announced that a sheikh who is the UAE's national security advisor would buy $2 billion worth of a stablecoin. Now, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, if you put this in a book, I don't know, Atlas Shrugged, you would be told, no president would ever do this. This is ridiculous. It couldn't happen. You're making this up. 2 weeks later, after this deal was announced, the administration granted the UAE the right to purchase the most advanced semiconductor chips. Something that had been prevented until that point because they feared they would be resold to China. The sheikh who bought the stable coins also owns the technology company that would receive the chips. I wonder if the two are related. Probably not. I'm just a TDS conspiracy theory guy, but there's probably no relation between the two. So here you have Trump and Witkoff, with huge conflicts of interest related to national security. And here they've overcome a national security issue in order to make $1 gazillion for themselves. Now, supposedly, Witkoff, the father, is in the process of divesting from this company. and he has no operational role, but it's his son. And he still has a significant stake in the World Liberty Financial, Trump's crypto company. It's all, they're just playing shell games. I mean, also remember that the crypto exchange that agreed to serve as the market maker for the Trump family stablecoins is Binance. Binance was founded by crypto billionaire something Zhao. I can't pronounce his first name. Zhao pleaded guilty to money laundering, causing money to flow to terrorists, according to the Justice Department. He was fined $50 million. He has spent 4 months in jail. But guess what happened when the first day the stablecoin, Trump's stablecoin, actually traded? Trump, well, not the first day. In October, Trump pardoned Zhou. So I'm sure there's no relationship between Binance as being the market maker for the Trump family and issuing the stable coin for the guy at the UAE with the pardon for Zhao and the chips to UAE, maybe then to China. There's probably no relationship there. It really is, and we haven't even got to the $400 million luxury jet that our friends in Qatar, the largest financiers of terrorism out there, our friends in Qatar provided Trump $400 million luxury plane. And just, it's also true that the Trump organization is making a $5 billion investment in a golf development project in Qatar. It's just a complete, and again, there's no even effort to hide this. And most of it is probably legal because a lot of what Congress has passed in terms of conflict of interest legislation excludes the president. But it's corruption at a scale that truly is hard to imagine. And, a lot of people are saying it's not illegal, and that's probably right. Probably right. It's just unseemly and disgusting. Compare this to somebody like George Washington. I mean, if George Washington is the best, least corrupt president in American history, this guy, Trump, is the worst and most corrupt. I can't think of anybody worse. And just think about the trading around Liberation Day and the money made, or the trading around the war, the trading with clearly inside information. Remember when people said Trump was going to go in and drain the swamp? And I said, this is in 2015, 16. I said, no, he'll just replace the swamp animals. I didn't realize how big of a swamp animal he was going to become. He is the biggest swamp animal. He and the Witkoffs, God, are they making a killing. It really is unbelievable. I mean, he should be impeached because of this, even though it's not illegal. It is beyond the pale for a president to do all this. And it's, in some cases, threatening national security. And clearly un-American. I mean, you could read the article after article after article that goes all over the different deals that are being made, right? 1789 Capital, which is Don Jr.'s venture capital firm, right? He has a venture capital firm as well as everything else. They invested in Vulcan Elements 3 months before the company receives this $620 million government loan. Investment banker Cantor Fitzgerald. Guess who owned Cantor Fitzgerald? Well, it's Howard Lutnick's sons run it, and it's the firm Howard Lutnick used to run. It's been a financial advisor, underwriter of startups, several startups who have received government support. And you can go on and on and on. It just, there's no end to it, and there's not going to be, because nobody cares. Nobody cares. Besant, in addressing this, says, I don't think there's an appearance problem. Really? What universe does he live in? I don't see any Republicans standing up to Trump, questioning this, challenging this. I mean, Besant says, I mean, this is, you want to laugh if you're not going to stab yourself in the eye or something. He says, this is an innovative presidency. So whether it's digital access, whether it's AI, whether it's everything is going on in the tech ecosystem, that, you know, all Americans are benefiting from that. So it's okay for the president, who has inside information, to benefit from it in disproportionate way more than I do. I want that inside information. Anyway, we are living in crazy times. Truly crazy and insane times. All right, let's see. Yeah, SCOTUS has come down with a bunch of decisions this week. Just this last week, they've published 633 pages of opinions. And, there's a lot to read and a lot to reflect on their various decisions. Some good, in my view, some not so good. It's really interesting, right? So, for example, on Monday, the Supreme Court ruled that the president can fire the heads of supposedly, quote, independent agencies. As the executive, those agencies that supposedly report to him can fire. And this is as part of the doctrine of separation of powers. The power to, actually apply the laws, to actually execute, is the executives. And I think they're absolutely right that the president should be able to fire anybody in a regulatory agency. And in the name of separation of powers, in the name of giving the executive that power, we saw that in Trump versus Slaughter on Monday. The idea that this country should be ruled by experts in regulatory agencies was an idea unleashed on America by Woodrow Wilson. I mean, as president, it was unleashed by the progressives. And it started the creation of these alphabet agencies that basically constitute a fourth branch of government. And that is wrong. And if that's the responsibility of the president, for good or for ill, he should be able to manage them. He should be able to fire who he wants. He should be able to replace people, as governed by the law that created the agency. So that happened on Monday. But at the same time, the court kind of chickened out a little bit and said that there's one exception to that rule. And that exception is the Federal Reserve. Now, in this case, this is good from the perspective of keeping the Federal Reserve independent of the executive, which I think from an economic perspective is right. But from a constitutional perspective, I think the Supreme Court was wrong on this one. I actually think they should have allowed Trump the ability to fire anybody in the Federal Reserve Board. It's just another alphabet soup agency. It's just another regulatory agency. It's just another way in which the government gives experts, in quotation marks, authority over all of our lives and takes it out of kind of the political project. The whole idea of the Fed independence is somewhat an unreality. The Fed has never really been independent. But let's make it dependent, and let's make the president and Congress responsible. And let's hold them responsible for the decisions the Fed makes. Let's hold our government responsible. We can't We can't vote out the chairman of the Federal Reserve. So I don't want a fourth branch of government. I don't want the Fed. I want the Fed out. But if the Fed has to exist, let it be part of the Treasury. And we'll suffer for it economically. But maybe we'll have much more clarity into the role of government and how government is actually functioning. All right. So, this court has also, as we know, ruled against Trump taking on more than what the law allows him. We saw that primarily with the tariff decision. That was a great decision. And we saw that earlier in Biden's case with the student loan decision. So this court has been pretty good in saying the president can act within the law, at least mostly, right? So they're not just willing to give the president whatever he wants. And they stopped him from firing Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve member, even though I think they probably should have let him fire her. Let's see, what else? Trump, if you remember, promised in his 2024 campaign that he would end birthright citizenship. The courts basically said, was it yesterday or Thursday? Yesterday. Tuesday. I don't know where my dates are all mixed up. Tuesday. That he doesn't have the power. That birthright citizenship is somehow embedded in the 14th Amendment. I don't have a strong opinion on this one. I'm glad because I'm glad on anything that undermines Trump's vicious anti-immigrant policies, anti-immigration policies. But if people want to come and have babies here, what is it? Birth tourism. Why does it hurt you? What is that a problem for you? It just creates more U.S. citizens. It makes it easier for those people to come into America to what do you call it? Study and work and become. They are U.S. citizens. They just come here. I think that's the more people in the world who are U.S. citizens, the better, because that means they can come in and out of the United States easily. They don't have to be subject to the bizarre, horrific immigration laws that we have in this country. So I'm not against birth tourism, but I get kind of the three conservatives who opposed it, who said the 14th Amendment doesn't really say this. They have an argument. I read an article by what's his name? Epstein, the legal scholar, who's pretty good on a lot of things, who thinks the 14th Amendment doesn't give birthright citizenship. I'm for anything that takes away the power from the president to inflict these horrible, immigration policies, right? There is a lot of, we've talked on this show, there is a lot of this birth tourism. It's not a conspiracy theory. It exists. And it exists in Guam. Guam is particularly favored by the Chinese. But as we talked about on the show, I don't know, months ago, judges in California have often rejected the ability, Richard Epstein, thank you, rejected the ability of these babies to get U.S. citizenship on the basis that their parents don't live in the U.S., they've never been to the U.S., a lot of time it's a surrogate. So there's a lot of attempts by Chinese millionaires and billionaires to do this, but the courts are pretty good at this, and the numbers are so small, it doesn't really matter. It has no impact on the world. All right, what else? It would be good if the court knocked down these executive orders, many more executive orders. You want a change, and by the way, you can end these tourist births by law. You can pass a law to end them. And the various ways in which Congress could change the law to make it more difficult for people to be citizens if they're just born here and they have no connection to the country. I'm not arguing for it, but you could theoretically do that. How are the Chinese using birth tourism to influence American politics? Tell me how that is happening. How can that happen? How many of them are there? How many births? 1,000? No. But let's say there were 1,000. Is 1,000 people going to sway American elections? And just the fact that they're born Chinese, is it in their genes to be anti-American and pro-Chinese? Maybe they'll grow up and become the biggest American patriots possible. There's just no... That's a conspiracy theory. There's just no way Chinese birth tourism influences American elections. That's just mythology. It's just complete mythology. All right, let's see what else. Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of other opinions. Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting statistic, just so you have it. It's an 18-plus year plan. Okay, so they'll have 18,000 people. Whoa! 18,000 people, and then they'll influence the election of dog catcher in Orange County. I mean, if you're afraid of America becoming more like Europe, then okay, ban Muslim immigration, if that's the issue. Figure out how to ban Muslim immigration, which Trump never did, right? But the problem of Europe is not immigration. The problem of Europe is Muslims. And there's solutions to that. Ban the Muslim Brotherhood, declare CARE, the Islamic organization in the United States, a pro-terrorist organization. You know, deal with the Islamists. Deal with the people who are a problem. Immigration is not a problem, not in Europe and not in the United States. It's the immigration of Islamists. And it's the lack of willingness by Europeans to enforce the law on immigrants and letting them getting away with that. Here's an interesting statistic, and then we'll go on. In this term, 44% of the court's decisions were unanimous. Unanimous. And that's, by the way, the average for the last 2 decades, 44%. Everybody thinks that this is such a partisan Supreme Court. In 24% of the cases, all 3 liberal judges were in dissent, only 24%. But 15% had all 3 or more conservatives on the losing side. Had 3, not all 3, had 3 or more conservatives on the losing side, including, for example, the tariff and the birthright citizenship ruling. And, the other major decision was on the late mail ballots. This was a big Trump thing, that states should not be allowed to count ballots that arrived after Election Day. Right now, in many states, the law is that if it's post-dated, if you mailed it on Election Day, it arrives a few days later, they'll still count it. The Trump administration wanted to overturn that and lost. So the states won on that one. All right. Let's see. I need to speed it up here. We're already pretty late, although you guys are being, really, really generous. So we're going to go, over 2 hours today because you guys are funding a show longer than 2 hours. So thank you, guys. More stickers. We got a lot of questions, particularly, $5 and $10 questions, $2 questions. If you're going to ask a question, try to make it 20 from this point on, just because of how late we might go, given how many questions we have. All right, Venezuela, quickly. So while I was gone, there was 2 big earthquakes in Venezuela. There are probably about 2,500 or 2,600 casualties so far, but it's probably much more than that. It's probably closer to 5,000 or 10,000, given how many people are missing. The damage is estimated at around $10 billion. Northern Venezuela sits near the boundary between the Caribbean and the South American plates. These were big earthquakes, 7.2, and then 7.2, and then 39 seconds later, 7.5. That's pretty unusual to have two large earthquakes like that. Remember, the way earthquakes are measured is exponential. So the gap between 7.5 and 7 is like 3 times more severe, even though it's only 0.5 difference. So this was a big deal. A lot of buildings collapsed, as we see, thousands of casualties. Supposedly the shaking near the epicenter zone may have reached roughly intensity of 9, which is really violent shaking of even the heaviest structures, and heavy damage is caused. So a lot of people have died, and the U.S. has sent help. Israel has sent help, actually, and so on. As part of this, the opposition leader of Venezuela, Machado, wanted to return to Venezuela to rally support to help with the rescue efforts, and also to establish and raise up the opposition to the current regime, which is still a dictatorship and oppressive. Machado actually coordinated this with the United States, and suppose he got on a plane and flew, left the U.S. and started flying towards Curacao, a Caribbean island, from which he was expected to get on a boat and, get into Venezuela. Supposedly, people within the Trump administration supported this, and it coordinated this with the Venezuelan government and asked them not to intervene, not to stop her from entering the country. However, about an hour into the flight, the dispatcher got a call from the White House, so from people in Washington, from the authorities, and telling them to turn around and come back, that the permission to fly to Venezuela had been rescinded. Supposedly Machado and her aides were stunned that the Trump administration had shifted. Marco Rubio told her it was not good timing. But really the issue here is, I think that Trump doesn't want her there. He doesn't want her there because he's getting along fine with the current dictator. He doesn't want elections in Venezuela right now. He doesn't want the uncertainty of what Machado will actually do if she comes to power, or whoever comes to power. He's getting along right now with the government. He's rigging everything for the sake of his cronies. He's making it possible for those people who have played nice with him to benefit enormously from the Venezuelan oil industry, and he's still determining where the money goes and how the money is spent. And people in the White House didn't want it going. It would upset the cause. Remember, the elimination of Maduro, or the arrest of Maduro and bringing him to the United States, had nothing to do with bringing freedom to the Venezuelans or establishing a more free country or anything like that. It had everything to do with the fact that Maduro would not play nice with Trump, and his number two would. Trump doesn't care about freedom one way or the other. And so he opposes Mikado going back. She's been planning this for months. He stopped it. It kind of creates a little bit of instability and uncertainty about his ability to continue to milk Venezuela for his own means, for his own aims. Now, Mikado then tried a different route. She flew to Panama City on Copa, and then booked a flight with Copa from Panama City to Venezuela. She was just going to go there, even though she doesn't have a passport. Her passport is expired, and the Venezuelans will not renew it. Copa then basically would not let her on the flight, saying that they did not want trouble with the Venezuelan government because they are one of the few airlines flying into Venezuela. They wanted good relations. So she can't get there. She'll keep trying. Maybe she'll go through Colombia, through the jungle or something. But it's kind of sad that this is the way the United States is treating a woman who seems to be pro-rights and pro-freedom, at least to the extent anybody is these days, who actually could turn Venezuela into a thriving place, and would be very, very pro-American and has been very pro-Trump. It is disturbing that this is how the United States government is treating her, but of course not surprising at all. Not surprising at all. Iran, I'll only say this about Iran. Basically, nothing new. The United States continues to capitulate. The United States continues to give Iran what they want. The Iranians continue to be very, very good at manipulating the Americans. We've seen that since the MOU has been signed. It looks like they're going to get more frozen assets in order to keep the Hormuz Straits open. They figured out that's the deal. They'll be paid by the United States to keep the Hormuz Straits open. And in the meantime, no progress is being made on the nuclear talks. No progress will be made on ballistic missiles, on support for Hezbollah or anything like that. There is a supposed ceasefire in Lebanon, but Hezbollah continues to attack Israeli troops. Israeli troops keep, responding, but localized. It's not all out like there was a few weeks ago. So Iran's getting what it wants. It's getting time for Hezbollah to recover. It's getting time for them to rebuild their ballistic missiles and everything else. And they're getting money by, threatening, blackmailing the United States with the Hormuz Straits. To call this pathetic is, I don't know. It's understatement of ever. Saudi Arabia is getting closer to the Iranians because, hey, they don't trust the Americans anymore. And they view the Iranians of winning this war. The chance that Saudi Arabia and Israel will cut a deal are basically zero at this point. Israel, because of its affiliation with the United States, is part of the losing team here, and therefore the Saudis are pivoting to Iran. Today, the Iranians are bold enough to actually bury their supreme leader, who was killed at the beginning of the war. His coffin is on display. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming out for the funeral. They're walking by it, religious leaders, and then, of course, you've also got dignitaries from other countries. I mean, I will just call this, just say it what it is, which is a target-rich environment. You've got hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets who support this regime and therefore are evil and bad. You've got all the leadership. I mean, imagine taking out the leadership of Iran at the funeral. I mean, that would be pretty cool. That would be really, really cool. Anyway, it's not happening. I mean, you got General Ahmed Vahidi, who you haven't seen much at all, who is the head of the IRGC. He was sitting alongside Khamenei's casket as Iran's theocracy held a small service, right? So Vahidi, who is probably the de facto leader of Iran right now, would never be out in public if he thought the Israelis might strike. But because it's a funeral, can't attack a funeral. Oh no. The Qataris are there, the Pakistanis are there, the Saudis are there. Armenia sent a delegation. It's pathetic. And it's rubbing America's nose in it. It's basically declaring, look, we won. We can do stuff out in the open. Our leader died and we got a new leader. So what? None of it matters. It will be interesting if the sun makes an appearance. Will the sun make an appearance? And if he doesn't, maybe he's in worse condition than people assumed. Supposedly Netanyahu is coming to the U.S. sometime to meet with Trump. He called him up to wish him a happy 4th of July, and they had supposedly a good conversation as usual, and they will meet in the United States, quote, soon. Soon. So we will see. Netanyahu wants to find a way to present himself as, no, Trump is good for Israel, and I have the relationship with Trump before the elections in Israel, because right now he is taking a slide in the polls because of his affiliation with Trump, because everybody in Israel knows that Trump has surrendered, and this is very bad for Israel. All right, we'll talk more about Iran in future shows. Okay, I've got a few good news stories. Here's one. I mean, it's not great news, but it's at the margin, not bad. Germany, the German government has just unveiled some minor, but some reforms to try to get their German economy going. They involve tax cuts, particularly for the middle class and lower income. They don't understand that if you really want tax cuts to help the economy, you need to make them on high earners. You want those people to be investing, not paying you taxes. Anyway, are they going to do a pension overhaul? Something the United States politicians are way too scared to do. So they're going to slowly raise the retirement age and link it to life expectancy, which is what you should do if you run a pension plan at all, and if you run a Social Security plan. Otherwise, it really is a pure pyramid scheme. So it's a pyramid scheme no matter what, I guess. They're making sick leave. Sick leave in Germany is a massive drag on productivity. People are sick all the time. They stay home all the time because they don't have to prove that they're sick with a doctor's note. So they're going to make it required that they show a doctor's note and they go to the doctor and they do all this. They want to increase productivity and cut down on sick leave. So this is pretty minor, not hugely significant. I don't see the massive deregulation. I don't see a solution to the energy costs. I don't see a recommissioning of nuclear plants and maybe building some new ones. I don't see a proposition to start fracking in parts of Germany where there are oil and natural gas reserves. So it's pretty weak, but it's a small move in the right direction. It's as good as I can get. All right. Crime. We've been talking about this for a while now. Major crimes are down across the United States. It's pretty stunning. Some of the lowest crime rates ever reported. And this includes, for example, California. California homicide rate is now at an historical low. And police are making more arrests of suspects of homicide. California homicide rate is 3.5 per 100,000. It's the lowest on record. The records go back to 1966. The national homicide rate is at, well, no, it's in, no, that was that. All right. Let me just see from the story. Yeah, a lot more arrests and a lot more police activity. And in Los Angeles itself, that's California, 3.5. In Los Angeles itself, the homicide rate dropped to 5.9 per 100,000, which is, again, the lowest rate in the city since 1959. Right? Let's see. I mean, 2020, 2021 were bad years. In 2020, the homicide rate went up by 31%. In 2021, it went up again, and it reached 6 per 100,000. Well, it's down, right? No, that's California. California total went to 6 per 100,000 in 2021. Now it's at 3.5. That's what I said, 3.5. Huge decline. Right, let's see, what else? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a 15% increase in homicide clearance rates, which is pretty amazing. That is, there's a significant increase in the number of murders that are solved, which is cool. All right, in addition to that, just on the crime stats, let's see. There's a bunch of crime statistics that we'll get. New York City reported historical lows in murders and shootings. For the first half of 2026, New York City recorded 122 murders, down nearly 25% from 162 in the same period last year. Shootings and shooting victims also reached first half record lows. Overall index crime is down nearly 6%. Robberies down 12%. Burglaries down 16%. Public housing murders down 44%. Again, this is all good news. We'll see if Mamdani has a reverse effect on that as he continues to be mayor of New York City. He probably won't because he's kept the chief of police, and she's pretty tough. If you look at U.S. violent crime rates, according to FBI preliminary data, released early 2025 data show violent crime down 9.3% across the country. Murder and non-negligent manslaughter is down 18.1%. That's huge. Robbery down 18.5%. Property crime down 12.4%. This is from 2024. Again, some of the lowest crime rates in American history. London reported its lowest homicide rate per capita since records began. Teenage homicides especially down. Only 8 teenagers victims in 2025. A 73% reduction since 2021. So even in London, and we hear the knifing attacks and the Muslims and all of that, record low homicide rates in London. So this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool that we live in a safer world. I mean, it's one of the measures of quality of life, standard of living, is how violent is the world around you, how likely it is that you become a victim of violent crime. And this all suggests that it's pretty low. All right, some human achievement stories. Okay, there's a graduate school dropout in China. His name is, what's his name? Geng Hongwei. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. Geng Hongwei is basically a video blogger who has made it his career to look at journal articles published by Chinese scientists and check to see if they make sense, to check to see if the data is consistent, true, if they're not fudging. Anyway, he is finding a lot of fraud or error and mistakes in academic publications published by Chinese academics. On May 12th, he alleged that the Shanghai University scientists faked the data in a journal, Nature Nanotechnology. Nature Nanotechnology is the name of the journal. The university announced the probe the same day. This is how respected this kid is. A month later, it said it confirmed misconduct, fired a postdoctoral researcher, and ousted the dean of the university's Institute for Translational Medicine. Now, in America, that process would have taken 5 years, at a minimum. At a minimum. So good for the Chinese for getting on top of the fraud. He does this regularly. His latest video came out June 21, just a few days ago, attacking a 2025 paper in Nature. Nature is a very prestigious journal, right? The university employing some of the paper authors quickly announced an investigation. Nature said last week it was probing the paper, which described a potential patch for delivering medicine to internal organs. The authors of the paper said they were cooperating with the investigation and declined further comments. So China, which is now publishing a big chunk of all publications on drugs, on drug development, is being scrutinized by this postdoctorate blogger, podcaster, YouTube channel, whatever YouTube channel is it in China. He has modeled himself after where's her name? Elizabeth Bick. Elizabeth Bick is a Dutch-American microbiologist who is known for her investigations of problematic papers. And she has had a huge influence on this guy. She has got a lot of papers rescinded, and a lot of people lost their jobs. She has lauded Geng's effort. She has said, it's a cat and mouse game, and the fraudsters are always one step ahead of us, but it's going to be more and more difficult because more and more people are signing up to do this. I think this is terrific. I think the fact that you can have somebody, who's well educated in the science going over papers like Bick and like Geng and finding errors and then publicizing that and getting universities and getting journals to actually act on it is a huge positive development in science publication. So that I count as an item in the good news bracket. This is good news stuff. All right. Let's see. Yeah, where are we here? All right, a few others quickly. NASA. NASA sent up a what's called a rescue mission. When was it? Today, I think. NASA and Catalyst Space, that's a private company, launched something called Link. Link is a robotic servicing spacecraft, and it's designed to rendezvous with and boost the orbit of the Neil Gehrels Swift Observatory. We talked about this a few shows back. This is an observatory that studies gamma ray bursts and other high energy cosmic events. Swift's orbit has been decaying faster than expected because of solar activity. And they're literally going to go into space, find the satellite, link up to it, and boost it into a more external orbit. That is pretty amazing stuff. And again, it sounds like a private space company is involved with NASA in doing this. Cased, I don't know what cased is. Anyway, researchers have developed a powder hemostatic agent that turns into a strong gel which when it touches blood. In other words, it can conform to deep irregular wounds, absorb more than 7 times its weight in blood, and remain stable for 2 years under room temperature and high humidity conditions. I mean, so in a battlefield or in other emergency situations, you could use this to stop bleeding. I mean, a lot of people bleed out. A lot of people who die in accidents, who die in the battlefield, bleed out. You can now spray the wound and it seals it up, which is huge, huge. And, probably save some amputations. This is something you could, could be in every ambulance. It can be used in every accident, in disaster relief, and of course in war situations. So science, engineering, keep moving ahead. And then, let's just turn to this one. Free trade continues to win out there in the world in spite of Donald Trump. So while America is building mercantilist barriers, as I've told you before, the rest of the world is trying to shred them. South American countries who are part of the Mercosur economic zone. This is I know that Argentina and Brazil and Chile are part of this. A few other countries are part of it as well. They signed a big deal with the EU. Remember that? EU hummed and huffed and wasn't happy about it because of agricultural stuff. But in the end, they signed the deal, and that's great. Now, they're about to sign a deal with Japan, which will reduce trade barriers between the South American countries and Japan, increase trade, both in critical minerals and energy, which Japan needs, agribusiness, which, again, stuff would flow from South America to Japan, automotive and technology flow from Japan to South America. Trade barriers are being reduced. These are not free trade deals, as I've told you many times. You don't need a free trade deal. All you have to do is unilaterally lower tariffs to 0, and you have free trade. But these are deals that move these countries closer to free trade. These are deals that lower the barriers to trade. They don't eliminate them 100%, but they lower them, and that is better than nothing. Better than what the U.S. is doing, for sure. All right, that, my friends, is the news for this July 3rd, Friday, July 3rd. There will be a show tomorrow celebrating July 4th, and there will be a show Sunday. What am I talking about? Sunday, with Nikos, Yaron and Nikos show, where we will talk about Curtis Yarvin, and that'll be a Sunday at 1 p.m. So it's early because we want to watch the Brazil game. All right. Let's turn to your super chat questions. I will remind everybody that the Ayn Rand Institute, a sponsor of this show, has ARI Live, which is a program that has courses that you can take. You can get graded or not. You can audit or not. You can sign up. I'm starting a course on globalization and trade, which starts on Tuesday next week. You can still sign up for it on aynrand.org/YBS, aynrand.org/YBS, and you can get a discount, 26YBS10, 26YBS10. Alex Epstein, who is the world authority on all things fossil fuels and environmental regulation, and of course an expert on all things energy. Check him out, alexepstein.substack.com. You can also get access to Alex AI, which answers all your questions from a knowledge base that is Alex's. Pretty cool. Coming soon to you will be Yaron AI. Still working on that and still trying to figure out how we will monetize it, but it is coming soon. All right, let's thank the sticker people. I'll remind you that Patreon is a great way to support the show. Patreon.com. Patreon or PayPal. You can become a monthly donor there, monthly supporter of the show, monthly contributor, and value for value. And I love the monthly contributors because it's a set amount that I get every month, and it's knowable. I can plan around it, and it's much easier to budget around that than the super chat that go up and down depending on the show. All right. Nature Observer, thank you for the stickers. Stickers, of course, are a great way to support the show too. If you're here live, because you don't have to ask a question, you just have to press that dollar button under there and just give a contribution to support the show. This show exists because of support from you. Couldn't exist without it. Adri, thank you, $50. That is very generous. Jackson, thank you. Those are the stickers for the day. We are doing really well in terms of where we are, but we're still $119 short of our third hour goal. So if there's anybody out there who wants to do a sticker, $5, $10, $50, $100, $500, anything you want, jump in there and help us reach our goals. All right, we're going to start with the super chat questions. We'll start with Grevhoek, who asks a $100 question. $100, that's great. He says, so great to meet you and finally shake your hand at OCON. That was great. It was awesome to hear about your early trek to SpaceX in the desert. This is a former employee of SpaceX. Being a patron since 2020 and am immensely enjoying your joint shows with Nikos. Cheers from Stefan. Thank you, Stefan. It was really a pleasure to meet you and hear some of the stories about SpaceX. Stefan got to know a lot of the people who were there early on in SpaceX and got to be there during the immense growth of the program. Just terrific. And thank you for the support for the ARI, and thank you for the support of the Yaron Brook Show. Really, really, really appreciate it. And again, it was great meeting you and having an opportunity to chat. You too should come to OCON. You get to meet great people at OCON and hang out and make new friendships. And yeah, it's a great thing. You guys should come next year in Colorado. All right, Liam, why has the Enlightenment been devoured so completely in our academic institutions? I can understand 2/3, but 99% of all universities being anti-Enlightenment seems so bizarre. And good guys couldn't maintain some segment of higher education. Yeah, because the good guys were on very shaky ground. The Enlightenment was good, but flawed. And the flaws were big. And over the last 250 years, the flaws became more and more and more evident. They can't defend capitalism. Basically because they can't defend self-interest. They can't defend reason. Because they don't have a theory of universals, and they don't have a theory of concept formation. They don't have the epistemological knowledge to defend reason. So I think given Kant's attack on the Enlightenment, and given that every single major philosopher since Kant has been anti-Enlightenment, it is a miracle that so much of the culture is still pro-Enlightenment. The universities got taken over because that's where they take ideas seriously. And they look at the Enlightenment ideas and they don't stand up to scrutiny. And unfortunately, they get hooked on these really evil ideas and some of them crazy ideas instead. But the rejection of the Enlightenment has been steady and systematic, really, since... Now, it's not everywhere, right? I mean, the Enlightenment, you say 99%. The Enlightenment has not been rejected by Steven Pinker. It's not being rejected by a lot of other academics. It's not being rejected in economics, for example. It's not being rejected in STEM. It's arguably given the it's not being rejected completely in political science. There's still political scientists who are big on the Enlightenment. It's not being rejected by even philosophy. So I don't know where the 99% comes from. Certainly, a lot of the humanities, it's being rejected. But again, philosophy, economics, political science, there's a lot more adherence to the and certainly STEM to the Enlightenment than your 99% number would suggest. Stefan says in a comment here, cannot recommend going to OCON enough. Was my first time this year and was like 10 times better than I expected. Met tons of awesome people. As a recommendation for a first-time goer, you guys need to come. You guys need to come. All right, Liam says, Blake Scholl's made a good point at OCON, that these regulators and politicians are still human beings that can be reached through persuasion. If we write everyone off as evil, we can't move the culture or enact better policies like Blake did. Absolutely. I mean, look at the success Alex has had. Look at the success Blake has had. Look at the success a lot of industries have had in pushing against the bad guys in Washington. It is possible. These people are persuadable. They haven't completely given up on any shred of reason. The Enlightenment is not yet completely dead. So let's not exaggerate. And there's still enough goodness out there that we can work within it. Greg says the Rothbard crowd at Mises is moving forward towards rejecting the Enlightenment. Yes, I mean, I think while Mises is our Enlightenment figure, although methodologically he's way too Kantian, Rothbard was always an anti-Enlightenment figure. Always an anti-Enlightenment figure. What they're really moving towards at the Mises Institute is towards nihilism. All right, let's see. Mike. Visiting New York now, and took the Ayn Rand Park Avenue walking tour from Fred Cuckingham. Great value, and would recommend. He shows you specific buildings where Rand lived and buildings that inspired the Fountainhead. Yes. So I've never taken it, but I've heard really good things about it. So check it out. It's an Ayn Rand walking tour in New York City. Why is this not working? Very strange. All right. I'm not sure. Give me a second here. I need to reboot something. Oh, God. What is going on? Okay, give me a second, guys. Hope it's just a second. My super chat app just kind of died on me. I don't know if Miroslav is out there. All right, it's demanding the API key. Let me find the API key. Miroslav is not out there. Okay, a bunch of stuff is behaving weird here. Let me find it. One second. That's not it. All right. Hang on with me. I'm pretty sure everything is there. I just need to be able to, just need to find the API key, which I haven't needed in a long time. So it's, it disappeared on me. That's not it. 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 Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's see if this will work. Where's Miroslav when I need him? Okay, that worked. And then I have to say continue, and then I have to continue. All right. Everything is there. All right. Well, not everything is there. Okay, a bunch of super chats just disappeared. That sucks. Why did it do that? All right, sorry guys. For some reason, I've got a bunch of super chats that have disappeared. I'm going to ask Miroslav to see if he can resurrect them for a future show. Let me deal with the ones that I have and the ones that I can access off of here. Let me just do this one we answered. Tyler says, Tyler, 100 Swiss francs. Thank you, Tyler. That's a lot of money. That's great. Trying to live up to my principles and pay for what I value. Thanks for the valuable work of Tyler from Zurich. Really appreciate it, Tyler. Thank you. Okay, let's try to do it a little differently and try to get to as many of the super chats as possible. I'm not doing it based on 20 and 50. I'm doing it based on what I can access and what comes first. All right, that we did. NM says, did you hear the Pinker session? How the Pinker session went? I haven't seen it. So I've heard from some people. I don't know. I don't know how. I want to see it first, and then I'll comment on it. Michael asked, is it possible that societies can move in free market directions quickly after the fall of Trump, where people begin rejecting xenophobia and statism and embrace marketism? Why? Why would they do that? I don't see why would they do it. What would be the impetus? What would be the motivation? It's unlikely a society moves in a free market direction quickly without a lot of work, a lot of foundations being laid, and I just don't see the work and the foundations being laid. Think about the 70s and how many people were working on it and the amount of people working on setting those foundations versus today. I just don't see it. All right, Michael, many states are working towards abolishing property taxes. Is this because baby boomers are retiring in mass and are having a hard time paying these taxes while keeping their homes? I don't think there's a crisis in people losing their homes. I don't think that's the issue. God, what happened now? I don't think that is the issue. I think it's a way for politicians to bribe old people to vote for them. And if you think about the fact that old people vote, young people do not, it's a very reliable, good constituency to have on your side. So a lot of people are retiring indeed, so it benefits them quickly. But it's not that there's a problem it's preempting. It's not that there's a problem or there would be a problem. It's just saying these people value, old people care about, we want the old people to vote for us, so we'll give them a goodie. We'll give them a cookie. This is the cookie. All right, Stephen Harper. I was all set for OCON 2026, but I had to cancel due to a last-minute medical issue. Sorry about that. I had started watching the online version. I will sign up for next week's OCON tomorrow. Excellent. We missed you, and I'm sorry you couldn't make it. That sounds pretty awful. Stephen Harper Campbell. Is figuring out objectivism like figuring out the theory of relativity? But in our case, no one will listen to how right we are. Yeah, in a sense, yes. It's about discovering a truth about the world, about how the world works, about how human beings work, and how human beings can flourish in the world. And very few people are listening. But it's a much more radical idea than the theory of relativity, because it overturns almost 2,000 years of philosophy in a way that Einstein didn't. Einstein was one more step built on experiments, and it was easy to prove, in a sense, to a small scientific community. One of the things that's true about that were oriented generally towards reality, as compared to kind of a community of philosophers that's not necessarily oriented towards reality. They're oriented towards many theories that reject reality, or that reject our ability to know reality. All right, Harper Campbell. Is living on welfare kind of a living death? You get just enough to exist in a miserable state. Well, I don't think so. Not in that sense. I think it is a living death, but not because of that. That is, I think you get a lot of money. I think you get money so you can exist pretty well. It's not that bad at all. So I wouldn't conceive of it that way at all. It is a living death because you're spiritually being destroyed. You're being told that you can't take care of yourself. Your self-esteem is shattered. You can't achieve happiness. But materially, the welfare state keeps you in pretty good shape. You got air conditioning. Most people on welfare have AC. They have cars. They live decent lives. They only live poor lives in comparison to everybody else, but in comparison to those not on welfare. But in comparison to poverty, they live pretty well. So, no, it's the spiritual death that is really nasty. Arthur, we are all born into a Kantian prison, a prison you cannot smell or taste or touch, a prison for your mind. Rand was the only ladder out. Yeah, I mean, she certainly is. So she is the ladder out, and most people don't know it. And most people don't know they're in a self-chosen, if you will, prison. Anem says, you said Trump would be the end of America, but then you said Vance is worse. Is it hyperbole at some point? How many times can America be ended? Well, America ends once, but there's a sequence, right? There's a sequence of events. I think Trump has put it in play, the end of America. He's set it in motion. I never said America would end under Trump's term. I said that Trump would do enough to undermine America's institutions, undermine American capitalism, American freedom to the extent that it exists, enough so that one day somebody will exploit it and really end America. That is, end America during their term. Now, this is always how I've explained it. And Vance could be another major step in that direction. So, Trump is not the worst possible outcome because somebody ideological is worse, but Trump makes that somebody possible. That's the sense in which Trump ends America, in the sense that he sets in motion the ending of America by making possible people who are much, much worse than him. Arthur, immigration accounts for 30% of the decline in private sector unions since 1989. J.D. Vance reads this as a loss of workers, but it's really a win for liberty. Weaker unions mean a freer market, and immigrants help preserve it. So I'm going to take your immigration accounts to 30% decline in private sector unions. I'm going to take that as true. I don't know. I haven't seen that number, but okay. And yeah, absolutely. Vance is a leftist when it comes to economics, 100%. And he is an advocate. He believes he is the spokesman for the working class and that unions are good for the working class. They're not. They're bad for the working class, but he believes they're good for the working class. And therefore, to the extent that immigrants hurt unionization, they are bad. And you know, he really believes that. So absolutely. Time. Thoughts on Elon sharing the Vigilant movie on X? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Elon has been very clear about how the extent to which he opposes immigration, particularly immigration into Europe. It's a vigilante movie about somebody killing immigrants in Europe who, I guess, break the law. It's not a particularly good movie, but it's getting a lot of press, and Elon is. But yeah, Elon believes in vigilantism. I don't. I don't think we should. I think these societies are still societies of law, and we should act and vote and advocate for the police, the legitimate users of force in retaliatory force, to actually exercise their responsibility to do it. Not your average algorithm. Is pessimism an anti-success engine masquerading as deep wisdom? God. I mean, it depends, right? Sometimes it's rational to be pessimistic, in a sense that sometimes the most realistic outcome is a negative one. Am I pessimistic by saying that Trump is initiating the ending of America? Is that pessimistic, or is it realistic? So I don't know, but certainly catastrophizing and you know, the end of the world is here. That kind of stuff is masquerading usually as deep wisdom, deep science, deep whatever knowledge. But it really is a form of nihilism, and that's true of millennial Christianity, and it's true of you know, the end of the world is here. Environmentalism. It's all basically the same. Tame says Mamdani volunteers knocked at 1 million doors. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, they're motivated. They're passionate. They're out there doing the work for a cause they believe in. It's insane. It's scary. It's scary. Not your average algorithm. Is a lot of philosophical pessimism just neuroticism in disguise? Intellectuals not feeling safe in their own minds. Pessimism, nihilism can hide emotional pain as intellectual sophistication. You know, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's more psychology than I know or understand. Exactly what motivates philosophical pessimism, or I have no idea. I mean, a lot of it just comes out of the philosophy. A lot of it just comes out of the logical conclusion of the philosophy that they hold, the ideas that they hold. Is everything bad in the world a consequence of neuroticism? I'm skeptical about that. James says, how would you compare Berlin to Paris and London? I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't like Germany, so I'm biased. And I haven't spent a lot of time in Berlin. I've been there a few times, but I haven't spent a lot of time in Berlin. I don't particularly like Berlin. I'm a big fan of London and Paris. Certainly Paris and London have, I think, more and better cultural institutions than Berlin does, better museums, although Berlin has a good museum, can't compare to Paris and even London. You know, the scene, you know, London is much more capitalist in a sense. It's got a financial center. Berlin is more hip and young and artsy, but not odd in a good way. So I'm not a big fan of Berlin. I'm a huge fan of London and a fan of Paris for the art. And beautiful city. Paris and London, I think, are more interesting and more beautiful cities than Berlin, partially because there's history there, a history which was basically flattened during World War II for Berlin. Berlin was built from scratch. Tame says young GOP are going full Groyper too. That's true. I mean, the young people are either going far left or far right. At least women tend to go far left, men tend to go far right. Although a lot of those men are turning away from Trump, and so it'll be interesting. Again, a majority of people are just smack in the center or don't have opinions. James, as a passionate intellectual trying to change the world, did it take you a while to learn the skill of letting other people be wrong? Is wanting to fix other people a form of altruism? Well, certainly it took me a long time to stop trying to fix other people. I don't know that trying to fix other people necessarily is altruism. It could be a remnant of altruism. It's also just a naivete about what it takes to fix to change other people's minds. How much of an effort it is, how difficult it is, how many obstacles there are, how resistant they are to it. And what tools you have in order to do it, whether you're competent to do it. So it could be altruism, but it's not necessarily altruism because getting other people to become objectivists is selfish. There's a huge selfish benefit to it. All right, James, which is more explicit about crushing the human? Which is more explicit about crushing the human soul? I think Christianity or socialism. Well, it depends which socialism. I mean, Marxism was less explicit than Christianity. But kind of the new left is just as explicit as Christianity, or more so. And again, depends which Christianity. Like you've got a theology out there, success theology, where you're supposed to be rich according to God. I mean, there were all kinds, but at its core, Christianity is about as crushing to human beings as any set of ideas ever has been. James, a third party will never happen. The only way we win is by taking over the Republican Party, or at least making it a lot better. Never is a very long time, and I'm suspicious of anything where it's the only way we win. Like, we're not going to win in my lifetime, so, and it doesn't matter what, because we can't take over the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. So, and I'm sure, given enough time, there's more than one way to win. All right, Hopper Campbell, thank you for the sticker there. Hopper Campbell then says, did Americans used to recognize it is better to risk rejection than fearful of holding back? I mean, I think that Americans used to be more risk tolerant, and they become more risk averse, if that's what you're asking. I think the closer you are to the Enlightenment and to the ideas of the Enlightenment, the more risk tolerant you are, the more ambitious you are, the more far out into the future that you're thinking. Modern ideas, the modern world is much more reducing of the scope of thought. Taim says, why does Trump like Mamdani so much? Because they're very similar. The statists who want to intervene, their power lusters, they share a lot in common. They share a lot in common. Hopper Campbell, altruism is what unites everyone except objectivists, even libertarians. Yeah, mostly. Again, the people who reject altruism in the name of nihilism, but it's a consequence of, or narcissism and other forms. But generally, yes, I think that's true. Dan says, Yaron, missed your sagely wisdom. Well, I'm back. Sagely wisdom is back. Thank you. Liam, thought on subtly pressuring your kids to give you grandchildren. Yeah, I'm against subtly pressuring your kids about anything. Although, and it won't work anyway. They need to want kids. They need to really value kids, or they shouldn't have kids. They certainly shouldn't have kids for the sake of you being a grandparent. Liam, do anti-progress movements typically lose? Well, I mean, I don't know what typically means. But yes, I think they generally lose, particularly in the United States. The Greens in Europe are anti-progress movement that have won periodically, but long term, I think, are going to lose. Short term, they might win. Long term, they lose. Michael, do you think Steven Pinker has a lot more respect for Rand now? Will you be able to do one-on-one with him in the future? I don't know. No answer. I don't have an answer to either question. I hope so. Jason, whether under the status quo or more capitalism, do you agree with the statement, a given city is only there to live in if one can afford to live in it? How would you rephrase it? I'm not sure what the issue is. You have no right to live wherever you want to live. That is, you don't have a right in a sense of independent of the cost of living and independent of your ability to live in a place. So your right to live somewhere is contingent on your ability to live in that place. So that's true. So if somewhere is expensive and you can't afford it, then you can't afford it. Move. Now, the problem is that a lot of it's not affordable because of irrational regulations and controls. Michael, have you seen Larry David's comments on July 4th? He seems like a real self-hating anti-American leftist despite his massive fortune and success in this country. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. He's a typical leftist. It wouldn't surprise me if he's anti-American. I've not seen his comments. I'll look for them. But I've not seen his comments. But none of that would surprise me. I think there are a lot of America-hating leftists. Arthur, there can be multiple perspectives, but there can not be multiple realities. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Arthur, part one. Before discovering Objectivism, when I would use the word selfish to insult someone, it wasn't because they were a billionaire or focused on their own flourishing. It was because they were an inconsiderate, self-absorbed person who could never see anything from other person's perspective, thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I think that's commonly used, but subconsciously, implicitly, well, what is the billionaire? He's pursuing his own self-interest. So whether you know it or not, the billionaire falls into the same category as the self-absorbent, inconsiderate person. And so you associate the two. So if somebody does attack a billionaire, you're much more likely to think, oh, he's in that same folder with the inconsiderate bastard. I'm not going to defend him. And I think that's how it works. So yes, most people associate selfish with inconsiderate, self-absorbed. But then if you ask them, well, what about the billionaire who made a lot of money thinking only of himself? They go, yeah, he's selfish as well. And by definition, that puts them in the same folder. And therefore, they respond as if they're in the same folder. Time says, why doesn't Iran take MOE money, build Trump Tower? Well, maybe they will. It's not over yet. Not your average algorithm. Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. I don't get that. How can he be guilty of something he did not do? Of all the good he did not do. I wouldn't use the word guilty. I wouldn't use the word guilty. Yeah. All right, Lincoln. Last question. Wish I could have gone to OCON, but a trip later this month got in the way, hoping to attend the Austin conference in September. Yeah, I hope you go there as well. That would be a great conference. All right, guys. Thank you. I think that's the questions. I'm sorry if I missed anybody's question. Either send me an email or let me know if I missed a question. And everything here is behaving weird. I think it's YouTube is behaving very weird. All right, let's cut it off here and wish you a great 4th of July. I will be doing a show tomorrow to celebrate the 4th of July. So it will be a positive pro-America 4th of July show. I'll talk a little bit about the issues I brought up in my talk at OCON. Join me tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what time, but somewhere between 1 to 3 p.m. East Coast time. See you then. Have a great 4th of July weekend if I don't see you tomorrow. Don't forget, Nikos and I will be on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Bye, everybody. See you soon.